the 2014 film It Follows, directed by David William Mitchell, a man who only has 2 other credits to his name, both of which are films from other genres entirely that I've not even heard of. But this one horror film he did is critically acclaimed. It's a standalone film. It's about a monster which takes human form and spends its entire existence seemingly chasing after one target at a time to try and kill them. But it does so at walking speed. And when I say walking speed, I literally mean as slow as a granny. It's the slowest antagonist you've ever seen in your life. So if you're in a field with this thing and you're its target, you can easily get away if you just turn in the opposite direction and run, or you could walk. As long as you're walking faster than the creature itself, then you're golden. But if it catches up to you in a house or somewhere where there's only one exit, you might be in trouble. But even if you get away from this thing, and you go to sleep, which eventually, of course, you have to do, then you'll be doing so in the knowledge that this thing will be getting slowly closer to you with every minute that you're asleep. It's relentless. It's like the Terminator. And putting 100 miles of distance between you and the monster is not going to work in the long term either, because it instinctively knows the exact direction it needs to go in order to catch up with you. I mean, even in James Cameron's The Terminator, you could technically lose the Terminator as long as you weren't stupid enough to call your mum and give out the address of the hotel you were staying at, but won't make any difference with this thing. Now, if all this sounds really weird, I haven't even got to the weird stuff yet. So, if you are the creature's target and you have sex with someone else, then the creature will change targets from you to the person that you've just had sex with. Personally, I'm not even sure if I could concentrate on getting it up if I knew this bloody thing was after me, but anyway. But if the creature kills the new target, then its next target will be you again, because it will revert back to the person that it couldn't previously kill. So I guess what you might want to happen is for you to have sex with someone else, and then that person will have sex with someone else, and then that person will have sex with someone else, and you'll build up loads of barriers between you and the creature. The other weird thing is that this thing is invisible to the entire world apart from its target or anyone else who has previously been a target. So to most of the world, it's invisible. So if you're stood in the middle of the street and it's coming towards you, you can't point out this fact to anybody or they'll think you're crazy. And if you start running away from the creature, again, people will think you're crazy because they won't be able to see what on earth you're running away from. Now, at this point, let me say, if you've not seen this film, go away and watch it before I reveal anything else. I've given you enough now. There's still tons about this film to explore and discover that I've not yet tapped into, but you should absolutely find all that stuff out for yourself. So, fair warning. 3, 2, 1. Despite how silly it sounds, this is a genuinely scary film. Let me just add that. I've seen the film twice now, the second being last night. I went to bed with gooseflesh on my arms. It takes place mostly in Detroit, in this really nice looking residential area. Think manicured lawns and large plots of land for each house. It's the perfect idyllic sort of place that you might like to raise kids in. It's lovely. And yet there are other scenes where the main characters have to go to these streets with loads of abandoned buildings in. And in the first of these scenes, I thought to myself, where did they find a place like this? And I went on the internet afterwards and discovered that apparently in Detroit there are loads of neighborhoods like this that have just been left to rot. I'm guessing because some local industry died or something. But in England, you'd struggle to find even one abandoned house. And if you did see something like that, take a picture, because I guarantee the next time you drive past, some unscrupulous property developer will have snapped it up and be trying to rent it out at an exorbitant price. So knowing that in America there's this city where there's literally thousands of houses all close together like this is kind of bizarre to me. Would it be naive of me to suggest that Detroit would be as good a place as any to be homeless because there's plenty of places to squat in and get out of the elements? I don't know, but watching this film has certainly improved my viewpoint of the city because it looks great. Even the abandoned neighborhoods look good in this film. I'd only previously seen the city through the eyes of RoboCop, so for most of my life I've just pictured Detroit as being this dark metropolis where everybody just mugs each other all the time, but not anymore. I'm quite certain, by the way, that David Robert Mitchell is a fan of the original Halloween. Not only has he tried to recreate his own heavenly Pasadena with the kids' neighborhood, but he's also directly homaged Carpenter's film with the classroom scene. In both films, the final girl sits in the exact same northeast seat in the classroom, looks out the window, sees the villain of the piece, except in It Follows, the scene's actually scarier because there's no way Michael Myers was ever going into that classroom to get Laurie with all those kids there, but the creature in this movie doesn't care. It will have a go at Kelly, regardless of whether she's on her own or with other people. And I've got to say as well, I don't think I've reviewed any film since the original Halloween, actually, in episode 18 or 19, where there's been such a massive effort by the director to do something different with the way the camera's set up or the angles in every single scene. It's really impressive. So I'll give you one example. There's a moment in the film where the main characters are trying to get some information from the reception desk at school. Now, the normal way to shoot this, just dump the camera anywhere near the reception desk, hold that line, and Bob's your uncle. You've got the scene in the can. But in It Follows, the camera is like 20 yards away out in the corridor to the point where you can only just make out the reception desk and hear what's going on. And while the conversation's taking place, the camera is turning around 360 degrees, so we can keep an eye out for the characters to see if the creature's following from any direction. It's almost like we're interacting with the movie, taking part, helping out. So it's really clever. And the soundtrack's really good as well. It was all done by a guy who calls himself Disasterpiece. He's come up with all these really twangy electronic mini tunes that play at the perfect times during the movie. There's one little tune that's better than the rest. It plays during the trailer and also just before the climatic showdown at the swimming pool. It's really catchy. I was humming it for like up to 24 hours after my most recent viewing of the movie. And if you played this tune on a harmonica or a guitar, it could almost sound like the ideal music for setting up the showdown with a gunslinger in a Western film or something. It's really clever. The characters are believable and likeable, and I like the fact that they don't fire off those wisecrack comments to each other like you see in so many horror films. Anytime a film gives you a break from that, it's definitely a welcome thing as far as I'm concerned. Lily Sepe, to have an attempt at pronouncing her name, is brilliant as Kelly, the main girl. She was only 17 when she did this film, but she absolutely nails the role, and hopefully we see a lot more of her in future horror films. I'm glad her and her friends don't get to the bottom of what this creature is, because it's so much scarier that way. They do have a sort of half-hearted attempt at tracing the chain backwards, but what they quickly discover is that the bloke who gave it to Kelly, he got it from a girl in a bar, and they're never likely to see her again, so it's a complete dead end, and they're never going to find out what this thing is. But that is the best for the story, I think. Never finding out is just a lot scarier. One thing I noticed the second time I watched the movie is that it's sort of implied that a lot of the people who are the targets in this film are going off and having sex with people off screen, and then that gives them a little break from the creature for a few scenes, at least until the creature kills the new target and then comes back to them. But like I said, I didn't notice this the first time around. I've never seen a final girl in a horror film have sex so often, by the way. Kelly has sex at least 3 times that we see in this, and possibly a 4th time as well with a guy on a boat that we don't see. But she's not doing it in a slutty way. She's doing it because it's the best way of staying alive. And one of the blokes she's sleeping with, he's pounding away at her, and she's not even looking at him. She's looking at the doorway to keep an eye out for the creature. What you will notice is that the time period setting is all over the place for this film. It's not a bad thing, by the way, but in at least one scene, a character is using a mobile phone. In another scene, someone's using what looks like a weird kind of shellfish Kindle that doesn't look like it would have even been invented in 2020. And yet in other scenes, characters are watching black and white TVs that look like they're from the 1950s. 2 characters go on a date at one point to this really old-fashioned looking cinema where there's like an Audrey Hepburn film on, and there's an organ playing at the front. So there are times during the movie where the film feels like it's set in the 1950s, but there's other times where it feels like it's set in the 2050s. Now, what I think's happening here is that the film is set in the future, but there's been some kind of renaissance towards older things, kind of a nostalgia movement. I like to think that the future in real life looks like the future in this film, not because of the black and white TVs and things like that, but just because of how chilled out all the characters are. Everybody seems to be reasonably well off. Everybody gets on with each other. The youngsters don't seem to be suffering with exam stress. And when they visit these really knocked down neighborhoods, there's no hobos or drunkards there to greet them. There's no punks with switchblades, that kind of thing. It just seems like a nice future, apart from the fact that there's a nasty creature running around. So I guess I've reached the point where I've got to come up with any negatives that I might have noticed. I think 1 or 2 of the scenes linger on a little bit too long at times, but I'm talking a few seconds here, a few seconds there, nothing that ruins the movie at all. Honestly, criticising this film feels like standing in front of the Mona Lisa with a paintbrush saying to people, well, maybe if I just touch up a little dot just above the eyebrow, that might improve things a little bit. Well, no, it won't. This film is a perfect film, and it almost feels just a waste of time trying to come up with stuff or ways that you could improve it. To sum up then, this is a great film. It's one of my favourite horror films of all time. It's a modern day classic. There's so many scenes in this film that are great that I've not even gone into, because if I went into all of them, I'd be sat here for like 25, 30 minutes. I've not even mentioned the ending. There's a great closing shot where two of the characters are walking hand in hand down the street, and in the background you can see somebody who may or may not be the creature back again. It's the perfect way to finish. I've got this film on Blu-ray. It's one of the clearest renderings of a film I've ever seen. The only thing that comes close to this is the remake of The Evil Dead that I've got on Blu-ray. I mean, I can't remember what It Follows looked like on previous versions I might have seen on DVD or cable or anything like that, but it's so clear, it's unbelievable. There's an audio commentary on the disc as well by two blokes from England, I think, that they're very insightful about the film. They know a lot about it. It's well worth listening to if you get the disc. Right, let's have a look in the bag of terror and see what sort of score we've got. If you've watched this review all the way through, you probably figured by now that this is going to get 4.5 or 5. So let's see which. 1, 2, 3, 4, struggling here. 5. It's a full house. 5 out of 5 for It Follows. It is a masterpiece, in my opinion. Now, I'm recording this video on January the 1st, 2021. I'm hoping to put this out tonight. And what a great way to start the year for the channel, a review of a film as good as this one. So if you've not seen It Follows, go and see it. So I'll be back next time then with a review of a film which probably won't be as good as this one. Until next time, bye-bye. Oh, and stay tuned for a clip of my horror locations board, because I'll be adding a little pin for the Detroit area. I can't remember the exact state that it's in, but we'll see in a second. Right, so it's in Michigan then. Weird state that, isn't it? Just in the middle of nowhere. But that ticks another one off.